I bet you guys can't guess PSA's favorite board game. Yeah, it's Monopoly. Or sorry, I think both of those work. PSA's parent company just bought Beckett, so today we're going to be looking at the bull case of this purchase, as well as potentially the downside or the bear case of this scenario. The reason why I wanted to make a video about this is I posted a YouTube short a couple days ago about this, and it went bananas. There's over 100 different comments, so I want to go through some of those comments as well and see what else everyone else is saying about this. But before we get too far into today's video, I am giving away this shiny Galarian Meowth to one lucky person. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button and then let me know down below, what do you think about PSA buying Beckett? If I reply to your comment with this money bag, that means this Meowth is coming home to you. For those of you that don't know, PSA grades the most trading cards and sports cards, basically any type of card. They grade way more cards than any other grading company out there, by a long shot too. And now that PSA's parent company just acquired Beckett, they own about 80% of the entire grading card market. This isn't the first time PSA's parent company has bought out their competition. Back in February of 2024, they actually bought out SGC, which is all fine and dandy. It's a free market. No one really cared that much because not a lot of people graded with SGC. PSA said they were going to keep it as an independent brand, but really what ended up happening is they bought it and then kind of ignored it. SGC graded less and less cards quarter over quarter, and then I feel like eventually they just started laying people off. Which brings us to 2025, where PSA is eyeballing Beckett and says, hey, you're grading a lot of cards there, buddy. Why don't we just have a little chat? And that little chat turned into a marriage. First, I want to cover some just like basics about Beckett and PSA, and then we'll talk about the bull case and the bear case. Beckett's company actually started in 1979. They released a price guide book. Oh, the 70s. And they didn't really get into grading until 1999. Since 1999, they've gained a lot of respect in the industry, and a lot of people trust Beckett to grade their cards. One cool thing about Beckett is they have a Black Label 10. So with this Black Label 10, it actually fetches higher premiums over a PSA 10. Meaning people will pay exponentially more for a Black Label 10 than a regular PSA 10. A Black Label 10 means the card is in pristine condition. It is a perfect card. So you have Beckett on one hand that fetches extreme premiums for a perfect pristine card, and then you have PSA, which is basically the industry standard for trading cards. If it's in perfect condition but not pristine condition, most collectors will send it to PSA. In terms of the amount of cards graded, Beckett is probably about the third largest grading company out there, right behind PSA and then CGC. The issues with Beckett are mainly around their long wait times, and they don't really have a lot of insights into the actual grading process in terms of like where your card is at in the process. So not a lot of people like that. The other thing that people don't like about Beckett, if you don't get a Beckett Black Label 10, the resale value of that card is going to drop significantly. And it's a lot harder to sell them in person or even online because most of the people are using PSA. PSA has already been grading about 70% of the total graded card market. And if it's not a Beckett Black Label 10, then it's not going to fetch that super high premium. They're really hard to move. So here's where things I think start to get interesting. They have SGC and PSA. Now they're taking their third biggest competitor, Beckett, and rolling it under their umbrella to bring up their total share of the market to about 80% of the entire graded card market, which in most industries you would consider a monopoly. The rest of the grading companies make up about 20% of the market. Those companies include CGC, TAG, DSG, PCG, which Rudy from Alpha Investment owns 69%. Well played with that one, well played. And then there's a ton of other grading companies as well. The only issue with all of those companies is the resale value. The vast majority of collectors grade cards for profit. I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack. A lot of people are like, oh, it's to protect the card. No, you can put your card in a penny sleeve in a top loader and it will protect it just fine. The vast majority of collectors that grade cards are trying to do so because they're speculating that that card is going to go up in value, specifically if they have it in pristine condition. And if you've ever gone to sell a CGC or a tag slab or basically any other slab in person or online, it's very hard to sell them. Almost impossible to sell them if you go to a card show. People will not give you the same value as they do a PSA slab. So if people are really upset with this PSA monopoly, the only thing is people are going to have to rally behind some of these other grading companies, like CGC, like Tag, because if the sentiment around these other grading companies doesn't change, then PSA is going to be our only option. Imagine there's only one company that you could buy a car from. There's only one company. How much do you think they can charge you for that car? Infinite amounts. So eventually, if there's only one grading company out there, how much do you think they can charge you to grade that card? Infinite amounts. And with those 80% of cards that they're grading, PSA can offer to buy back those graded cards. So the whole point of a grading company is to authenticate a card and to assess its condition. It'll get a grade from 1 all the way up to 10. They're the ones we're supposed to trust to actually grade our cards and assess their condition. The only thing now, PSA is actually offering to buy back those graded cards from us. No grading company is perfect, but PSA literally just had a scandal happen about 2 weeks ago. Submitted 11 cards for grading, 3 of them came back as 9s. PSA then offered a percentage to buy those cards from that person. Usually it's between 70 and 90% of the card's actual value. And then after that person agreed to sell their cards to PSA went back and changed a lot of the grades from 9s to 10s. And if you know anything about graded cards, 9s usually sell for a lot less than 10s. Now, there's been a ton of different grading card scandals across all different companies that grade cards. PSA is no different. It's just scary to think that eventually there might only be one company that will grade cards, and they dictate the entire market. So that's the part that makes me really nervous. They're dictating how many cards get a PSA 10, a PSA 9, so they're controlling the supply. So they're controlling how much they're willing to pay, which will dictate how other people will price their cards. And then they're gobbling up all of their other competition. So we have no other option. Not a great look. Not to mention PSA has a partnership with GameStop and they have a partnership with eBay. So any Joe Schmo off the street could bring their ungraded cards into a GameStop, have GameStop submit them to PSA, and then PSA will send them right back to GameStop and people can go pick up their cards, making it infinitely more accessible for people to grade their cards through PSA over any of their other competitors, specifically Tag, CGC, DSG, PCG. Competition is good for the market. It will keep prices down. It will keep companies honest. PSA could do the exact same thing that they did with SGC to Beckett, where they don't put a lot of money into marketing or really do anything with Beckett and they slowly let it dry up and evaporate. And then they just lay off more and more employees until the brand's not there anymore. And if they stop grading cards altogether, what happens to all of the slabs that people have already bought from them? Does that make it increase in value because the grading company's not there anymore? Or does that bring the card's value down 1,000,000 times because, well, no one knows what Beckett is anymore? Now, here's the bull case for PSA buying Beckett. Beckett has always suffered in terms of like visibility as well as accessibility, so their processes aren't that great, where PSA is grading exponentially more cards than them. So if PSA actually brings some of their refined processes and implements them, we might see some of the wait times for Beckett come down. I will say PSA's parent company did say they're going to keep the company separate. In my mind, you can still bring processes over from one company to the other. I don't know, that part's up for speculation. Let me know what you think down below. So in the bull case, maybe PSA can help Beckett in terms of processes and getting some of those wait times down and with a lot of their visibility so people can actually see exactly where in the process they are when grading. The other potential good thing is if PSA controls the entire graded card market, maybe it will stabilize the market and they'll keep everything at, a somewhat low price. I just find that hard to believe.
Time for comments.
One of my favorite comments I got was from Braxophone. The company known for market manipulation bought one of the most well-known, more accurate grading companies. What could go wrong? My thoughts exactly. HRAS7134 says, graded cards feel like a scam in general, which I can't even debate. I mean, who was the first person to start grading cards in the first place, and what gave them the authority to do so? And if you're anything like me, you've probably seen people submit the same card to PSA or to any other grading company and get different grades each time. That's because most grading companies have humans actually doing the assessing. So your grade for that specific card could change based on the grader, what they think is wrong with the card, if they had a bad day, if they're in a rush. The only time where I don't see people really cracking slabs open and resubmitting them is when they're submitting it to Tag, because Tag uses an AI grading process, which I think it's only a matter of time for PSA to adopt. If they're controlling the entire graded card market, what's stopping them from implementing AI grading and then just laying off all of the people at Beckett, SGC, and PSA and just using computers to do so? Trap Vandal says Black Label values about to tank. I think there is two options for Black Labels. If PSA puts a lot of effort behind actually keeping Beckett's brand alive, then I think it's going to be fine and there's not really going to be much change. But on the other hand, if PSA's parent company literally just bought Beckett to squish a competitor, then over time Beckett might lose a lot of its notoriety in the market. If we're talking 5-10 years, maybe people won't even remember the Beckett name at that point, and some of those cards that held crazy high premiums might not sell because people don't really care about Beckett Black Label 10s anymore. Everyone wants a PSA 10 or a CGC Pristine, who knows? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm going to be responding to a bunch of comments. I find this super interesting. And if you guys are into Pokemon, Pokemon news, One Piece, Magic the Gathering, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below because I have no life and those are my favorite things.